To the Monday, January 27th meeting of the Eau Claire City Council. This is how tonight's meeting will work. Staff will present on an item. Council can ask questions, and then the item will be open for public comment. For public comment, we will prioritize the sign-up sheets open to the chambers in the back of the room, but anyone can speak if they're present. You'll have 4 minutes to speak when you talk, and you can speak one at a time. So that'll be later. And then, and just a note, in addition to speaking for the council tonight, there are other ways to share your thoughts. You can fill out a blue comment card in the back of the room if you do not want to speak publicly. You can always email council members, and you can fill out an electronic comment form, which is on the same site as the council packets. These can be found at our homepage at eauclairewi.gov. And with that, we'll start the public hearings. First item on the agenda is public hearing on proposed improvements to the following alleys: alley east of Bellinger Street, Cameron Street to Maxon Street; alley east of Bellinger Street, Maxon Street to Platt Street; alley south of Claremont Avenue, Patton Street to East Lexington Boulevard; alley south of Cleveland Street, Fisher Street to Cleveland Street; alley south of Cedar Street, 11th Street to 9th Street; and alley west of 9th Avenue, Lakeside Avenue to 250 feet north. And presenting on that tonight will be Engineering Director Leah Ness.
Good evening. I'm going to start out with an overview of the pavement index that we keep track of related to the alleys. We do this for the streets as well, so I'll show another chart similar to this on the second public hearing tonight. But overall, we've tracked the surfaces within the alleys for many years. I just put the last 5 years up for comparison so you can see. We have 248 alleys. We actually, this says length, but these are segments of alley that we are tracking. And the goal is really to look at the good and excellent versus the fair and poor here. And you can see that we've really maintained the pavement index within the good and excellent, and kept the fair and poor decreasing or maintained that over the last 5 years. And then we'll be looking at 6 alley projects tonight, and the detailed cost information, existing conditions, and proposed improvements are located within the engineer's report, which were in the council packets. They were also sent to the adjacent property owners with the notices related to the alley projects. All of the alley projects being brought forward tonight are generated by the 2025 CIP process, none by petition. And the alleys, again, are chosen on pavement condition, use of the alley, and then also just balancing projects throughout the cities and throughout the city and the neighborhoods. The alley improvement projects all include grading, gravel to improve the drainage, and a 2-inch thick asphaltic surface to 12 feet in width. So I won't read that for each of the project slides. Each project also will include restoration adjacent to the improvement in the Shoulders Boulevard lawn adjacent to the alley. 4 of the alleys have utility improvements, and I'll touch on those details with each of the detailed slides here. So we'll start with the alley east of Bellinger Street from Cameron to Maxon Street, and that is located in the Cannery District and has 6 abutting properties. This alley would include sanitary sewer and services along with water main and services, as those existing utilities are from the early 1900s. 1 block up from that, so the alleys that we're looking at are just west of Oxford Avenue. 1 block up from that, we're looking at the alley east of Bellinger from Maxon Street to Platt Street. And this too is in the Cannery District. It has 14 abutting properties. Additional utilities on this would include replacement and installation of sanitary sewer and services, which were from 1946. We had no calls on either of those alleys within our department prior to the meeting tonight. The next alley that we'll look at is south of Claremont Avenue, Patton Street to East Lexington Boulevard, and that is located in the Putnam Heights neighborhood. It has 8 budding properties, mostly commercial properties, sanitary and sewer and services, water main and services, and storm sewer. So all 3 of our utilities will be addressed with this project. The existing utilities were originally installed around the 1950s. And as mentioned in the virtual work session, we'll reach out to these businesses to discuss access during the construction time frame. I do expect that this alley reconstruction would take a little bit longer than our other alleys, just due to the amount of utilities within it. So probably around 4-week time frame for the construction at that location. The alley south of Cleveland Street is in the Shawtown neighborhood and has 10 abutting properties. No utilities exist within the alley. Staff did discuss some general information explaining the CIP process and assessments with the resident related to that alley. So we had 1 call related to that alley within our department in the last couple of weeks. And the alley south of Cedar Street that is located in the Upper West Side neighborhood. It has 18 abutting properties. There's no utilities within that alley. We did have 1 individual that came in to inquire about the project, their property is adjacent to the alley, but they do not use the alley as a primary access. Their primary access is off of Walnut Street. And then I had another individual tonight ask me about the weight of a trash truck that would use the alley, and if we would make adjustments with pavement thickness or our base course related to that for the alley, because there is trash pickup that uses the alley, which what we propose, a 6-inch base and a 2-inch asphaltic surface, should withstand the trash hauling operations through the alley. Then just to go back to access to the alley, when we did drive this alley, it was in almost a gravel state condition, and from the looks of it, it had quite a bit of traffic through there. About 50% of the properties looked like they used it as their main access to their property. Looking at the alley west of 9th Avenue, that is located in the historic Randall Park neighborhood. It has 7 abutting properties and no utilities exist within that project. We did not have any calls or questions related to that project come into our office. And that is a very brief overview of those projects. I can take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you, Director Ness. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any members of the public signed up to speak? Okay, it seems we have 1 member of the public signed up, Jean Miller, if you'd like to speak. As stated before, you have 4 minutes to speak. There will be lights there in front of you, and they'll light up when you start speaking, and then they'll go down, and then when it gets to red, your time will be up. So thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I live on 915 Cedar Street. It's the alley, and the alley is in the back of my lot. It's between 9th Street and 11th Street. Now, I do not have an entry or an exit from my house or from the garage to the alley at all. No exits. I go out the front way. I have a garage in the front, and my garbage is picked up in front too. And anyway, I cannot see why I should have to pay for it. I know there are people that go back and forth on that alley, but I don't have any use for it, and I'm the only one. And I can't see the cost of it being put on my shoulders. I know it's on everybody's, but I can't see it being put on my shoulders because I don't use it. I can understand when you put a cost on streets, because everybody uses that, but not alleys. So it's basically, I just don't use it, but I live there. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Miller. Any question from council for Ms. Miller? Okay, thank you for your time. Are there any members of the public here that would like to speak on this item who have not signed up on the list? Any members of the public for the alley improvement projects? Okay, seeing none, we'll dispense with item 1 and move to item 2 of the agenda tonight. Street, utility, and sidewalk improvements. This is a public hearing on proposed street, utility, and sidewalk improvements to the following streets: Brookline Avenue, Clearwater Ridge Drive to Windsor Drive, 7th Street, Walnut Street to Marshall Street, and Windsor Drive, Abbey Hill Drive to Brookline Avenue. And again, we have Director Ness.
Good evening again. I'll have a little more detail on these projects moving forward. Here's this similar chart that I had referenced before, looking at the 5-year street pavement rating index, and this one is indeed by length. Overall, we've really maintained, again, the excellent and the good. We've moved a couple of the street segments from the fair and poor up into that good area. So I think that we're doing well with our overall pavement rating. And again, this is just one item that we use to look at when we are bringing street projects forward to you. Utilities is one of the other major items that we look at for recommending what's included in the CIP. Tonight, we'll be focusing on the 3 projects. Brookline Avenue and Windsor Drive are located in the northeast section of the city. And then we'll jump down to 7th Street, which is located in the Upper West Side neighborhood. Brookline and Windsor are called out as reconstruction projects, and 7th Street is called out as a maintenance project. It's really kind of a combination of maintenance and reconstruction, and I'll go into those details when we look at that project. But first, we'll start with the Brookline Avenue from Clearwater Ridge Drive to Windsor Drive. It has 2 adjacent parcels to the project with development that is already along the west side and proposed future development along the east side. We have been working with the property owner and also their engineer to look at services being provided to the future development on the east side with this project. This roadway is classified as a collector street, and the pavement is considered to be fair with a pavement rating index of 42. We'll look at the fill drawing here. North is to the right of your screen. The southern portion of the project that starts at Clearwater Ridge Drive is on the top. And as you go to the bottom part of your screen, that's the north end of the project. The existing section of Brookline Avenue is 24 feet in width. The proposed project would reconstruct the street to 30 feet in width with 2 11-foot lanes and a 4-foot shoulder. With this being a collector route, we would pavement mark it with a center line and edge line. The edge line is kind of hard to see on here. It's black, but it would be a white edge line to delineate the travel lanes from the shoulder. There is no curb and gutter proposed along this due to the topography, stormwater management in this area, and then the future development along the east side. In reviewing the project with BPAC, they recommended additional crosswalks and pedestrian ramps where feasible. And as mentioned in the virtual presentation, this is near the town of Seymour. We will work with the town related to the notices and the properties within the town, also with the project timelines, notify them of them. the project timelines, it will go along with the Windsor project as well. There are no transit routes along Brookline Avenue, and then this will be closed to through traffic during construction. We're going to jump over to 7th Street for our next project from Walnut Street to Marshall Street. This has 15 adjacent properties and is planned as a reconstruction and a portion as maintenance, as I mentioned. This is really based on the history of projects out here and how utilities have been replaced historically. City has been in contact with a couple parcel owners along this project to discuss the utilities and also the access to, there's a business on the south portion, southernmost block of this project. 7th Street is classified as a collector street and pavement is considered fair with a pavement index rating from 59 to 79 with the help of a recent chip seal that was completed in 2010. So here we'll get into the fill drawings for the project. Again, north is to the right of your screen, and the upper intersection is starting at Walnut, and as you go to the bottom portion of the screen, you can see Fountain Street moving to the north. This portion of the project is proposed spot curb and gutter replacement, sidewalk and driveway approaches as needed. And the new sidewalk is being proposed where no sidewalk exists, so we will have that connectivity for sidewalk, and storm sewer will be addressed as needed in this section. As we move to the north from Fountain Street to Marshall Street, this section is proposed to have curb and gutter replaced at the same width at 34 feet. Water main services and sanitary sewer and services, storm sewer, will be addressed in this portion of the project. BPAC reviewed this project and considered or suggested considering no parking signage on one side of the street to look at filling in the sidewalk gaps, which was being proposed, and to increase the trail crossing signage and markings. Back on the southern portion, the trail crosses where that blocked crosswalk area is. Transit route number 8, Folsom and Vine, uses 7th Street with a stop at 7th and Fountain Street, and there is a bus pad being proposed there. Construction impacts will be coordinated with the Transit Division, and I think that's all the details I had on that project. We'll head up back to the northeast side to Windsor Drive, and this is a east-west street between Abbey Hill Drive and Brookline Avenue. Again, this will go at the same time as Brookline Avenue and will work with the town of Seymour. There are 3 properties within the town of Seymour that are adjacent to this project. Here we have Abbey Hill Drive at the southern end. North is actually up on your screen this time, and Brookline Avenue is on the east side. And details related to this, there's no sanitary within this block, and we're not proposing to replace due to elevation changes through here. There's water main from 1988, which is in good condition, so water services will be stubbed to the vacant lots, but we don't propose replacing water main. There is some storm inlets along the project, and those may need adjustment. We may need to add a couple stormwater inlets to adjust the storm water, but don't plan on installing a storm sewer system throughout the entire project. Again, with the topographic and stormwater constraints, we are not recommending curb and gutter and sidewalk through this section. We're recommending, again, a 30-foot street replacement with 11-foot lanes and 4-foot shoulders. This also is a collector road, so it would have the center line and the edge lines painted along it. BPAC again recommended curb ramps and crossings where feasible. Transit does not run on Windsor Drive. It will be closed to traffic during construction, and as I mentioned, we'll work with the town and adjacent properties related to access during construction. That's the detailed information I had on those projects tonight, and I can take any questions.
Okay, thank you again, Director Ness. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Brewster?
Thank you, Acting Council President. I was just wondering, when you bid out these projects, or I'm assuming this is something that we don't do in-house, correct?
We do the design now. Tonight is allowing us to move forward with more detailed design related to these projects.
Okay.
And then we would bid that out to the contractor.
Are the projects bid independently, or are they like, here's a bid for all the alleys this year? Just, it's not super relevant, but I'm just curious, and you're right here, so.
Yep, moving forward, you'll see 2 different bid packages. We'll probably put these 3 streets together as one bid package, and then the alleys would be one bid package.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Councilmember Schoen?
Thank you, Acting Council President. I have, I guess, 2 questions, if that's okay. You referenced, Director Ness, some intent or efforts already taken to work with the town of Seymour on the roads on the north side, Brookline Ave and Windsor Drive, and I'm wondering if you could just speak to that and help me understand what that collaboration would look like and how the town might cooperate with the city on a project like this.
So we actually, I'm meeting with the town tomorrow night on another project, and just having this information available to them, the proposed improvements as we get the contractor on board and know the timeline, we'll share that information along with notices that will be sent to the town, similar to what we send to our residents. So we have been in communication about the project. Assessments do not go to the properties within the town. They are held, and should the property annex into the city, then the assessment is given to them at that time. But otherwise, we've been working to move forward with the town, different towns on projects adjacent to their properties, and looking at cost sharing with some of those projects.
Sure, thank you. And then can I have one more question?
Yes.
So the 2 roads I just asked about on the north side, I've actually gotten contacts from my residents. I know I've forwarded those along to you when I've received these, just with concerns that due to the quality of the road right now, it's actually very unsafe to drive on. And I'm just wondering if you have any feedback about, like, or I think maybe it's to the benefit of everyone in council chambers and the rest of city council as well, to hear about how important these types of improvements are, and just I'm hoping for confirmation that those concerns that have been raised will be addressed through the redesign and then the reconstruction projects as well.
Yeah, so out here, there is some topography through the area. We start with Abbey Hill on the west, and then Brookline Avenue has a hill going from Low on the south up to the north. And by widening the roadway and really having better definition with our pavement markings out there, I think that will really help improve the traffic out there. Providing a shoulder for pedestrians and bicyclists will be advantageous as well. It's not a sidewalk, it's not the curb and gutter that really gives the elevation change between vehicular traffic and having a sidewalk off to the side, but better than what is out there now with the existing 24-foot roadway.
Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Acting Council President Miller. So, Director Ness, on the 7th Street project, my question is about one of the access points for a business that is at the bottom of the hill there. And you're very familiar with that area. Mm-hmm. Have they been contacted about this? And sort of my question is around, it looks like a curb is going to be placed there, and I just wonder if that might hinder the access of trucks coming in and out, or maybe it's going to be designed in such a way that it will allow trucks to come in and out. Can you explain that?
That is one of the properties that we've been working with through the design side. Since we haven't gotten into the detailed design, that is something that we would reach out with them. I know that Tim Pluth, our project manager on this project, has been working directly with them.
Okay, it's a small thing, but I noticed when I looked at that entry, it's all level, the whole area is level, and I imagine that if it stays that way, it'll be fine, but if it's raised, it's gonna be an issue.
Yep.
On this Brookline and Windsor, it's hard for me to tell from those photos. It's clear that the road is in really poor condition. The question I had is around some of the tree canopy and tree removal. And are neighbors aware of which trees are going to be removed in the process of widening this road? And do you have a sense of that?
That's something that we can look into further. I did have within the project description that there would be some tree removal related to both of those projects, but to the extent I would have to look further and talk with our designer on what they're anticipating at this point. Without having utility replacement, that really limits, we don't have to go too much further outside of where we're at, but we are expanding the roadway from 24 to 30 feet, so that will get into the right-of-way and the trees within the right-of-way. Mm-hmm. We are not anticipating any impacts outside of the right-of-way with any of the projects.
I see, that makes sense. Is there, I don't know the answer to this, but I mean, is there ever instances where within the right-of-way, the street could account for the fact that, there's wiggle room in terms of how that street progresses? Does it ever take into account like large trees that are within a construction area? Or could it?
That's a great question.
Okay.
I think it would be very project-specific, depending on the distance in between the large trees, or what type of curves we would be looking at and how we would be introducing those. A general rule of thumb with roadway design is the less curves, the more anticipated by the driver, and less introduction of conflicts.
Mm-hmm. That helps, thanks.
Any further questions for Director Ness? Thank you. Seeing no more questions, I'll open this item up for public comment. No one has signed up on the sheet, but are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to speak on the items of these street improvements? Okay. Seeing none, we will move along to the public discussions. Item 3 on the agenda tonight is downtown parking study. Public discussion on the draft downtown parking study, and we have Deputy City Manager Dave Schulberg presenting tonight.
Good evening, Acting Council President Miller and the rest of the City Council. We have John Forster here tonight, our consultant that we've been working with for the past year, to go over the downtown parking study that was commissioned last year to examine the changing face of downtown parking. The last parking study we had done was in 2019. Since then, we had COVID, and there was a change in the way downtown has operated, with more entertainment downtown, probably less office space, different demands, and this was something that we wanted to try to understand what the change post-COVID has been. We have a number of parking structures that are obsolete that we will be looking to replace. Knowing how the change of downtown has occurred will help us make educated decisions with replacing the parking structures. There is community concern, not only with the businesses, but residents over the parking supply in downtown. DECI commissioned a survey And that'll be, some of the results are in the parking study that was in the council packet and before you at your seats. And the costs that we have in the parking system, like just about everything in America, is going up. We have higher maintenance costs. We have just the overall cost of the parking system is growing, and we wanted to include that in the study as well. So we started the public involvement process with Mr. Forrester coming and looking at the downtown. He made 2 site visits to Eau Claire. One was primarily during the day for more traditional counts, looking at the business times of day, 8 to 5. The second time he was in town was looking at an evening and weekend to try to see the different change with the entertainment that is occurring more frequently at night, as well as a weekend with farmers market. The Pablo has events both during weeknights and on weekends. So during those visits, we held open houses. Council members were invited. The public was invited. Businesses were invited in the North Conference Room. Plus, we had Zoom links available for those. Walking tours were arranged. So if business owners wanted to go one-on-one with Mr. Forster, they could walk around and share their thoughts, or walk in a group tour. We had open houses on parking. John made himself available at a chamber, Eggs and Issues, and was sought out by some of the attendees at that event. And then again, we reviewed the parking survey. So there's a lot of information that's in the council, that was in the council packet, and I made a copy for at your desk as well today to go along. We have another 20 slides that John will go through with recommendations, but kind of the process, John will go through some of the recommendations. We will be more than happy to take questions. And then following tomorrow's meeting and discussion tonight, we'll have a short work session to see if there's any additional guidance from council with the final study that then would be presented to the city council 2 weeks from tomorrow for acceptance. So with that, I will hand it over to John Forster, or as he's known as the parking guy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forster.
Good evening. Nice to see you. Spoke with some of you during the process, so nice to see you again. Thanks for having me back. We'll just go through some of the findings. Really, the biggest finding that I have is that your pricing strategy with your premium, your on-street spaces that everybody can see right as they're driving down the street, are free, whereas your less desired spaces off-street and in the parking ramps cost money. What that does is it creates behavior where the average patron and customer thinks the only available parking is on-street. It's free, it's right there, that's what I want. They don't even consider the off-street parking a viable alternative. And so what that does is, even though there are spaces in the ramps for parking, people feel like there's a parking problem. And that's what you hear. Hey, we've got a parking problem, we've got a parking problem. And so you're just using a fraction of your total spaces. And so that's what your pricing strategy has kind of led you. To just talk a little bit about that, as Dave mentioned, you do continue to have converting your parking lots into buildings, which is awesome. It's a good thing. Parking lot is not necessarily your best use of land, but you also have 2 ramps that are coming up, the Riverside and the Gibson, that are due for demolition over the next 5 years, as they've served well, but they're tired and it's time for them to go. So things continue to change for your downtown. I know it's been a decade or 2 of almost constant change for your downtown, but it continues to be good things. Talk a little bit about finances. So in the most recent fiscal year, annual parking revenues were around $800,000. And that includes the ramps and lots, plus also your citation revenue that comes from tickets that are written. Unfortunately, your annual operating expenses are over $1 million. That does not include capital maintenance. That's just your operating expenses. And so the city transfers $250,000 annually, give or take, from the general fund just to cover those operating expenses. The projected deficit for 2025 is $350,000. What I do know about deficits is they incur deferred maintenance. They incur you to put off taking care of the facilities money's money, money always talks, we know that, and other upgrades. And, you know, you're debating the issues and whether to spend another $20 million on replacement parking structures in the next few years as these two come down as well. Like I said, I understand money always matters. Parking leadership, engineering and neighborhood services. Engineering runs the off-street parking. Neighborhood services kind of runs the on-street parking. I think everybody's done a fine job with what they've been asked to do, but there's no one in charge who's this is our park. I'm the parking guy, but I don't live here. So who's the local parking person who's in charge and is looking at our operational effectiveness, might be planning for the future, talking about technology. Again, I don't think anybody's done a bad job. You just have fragmented roles, and so that leads to not a lot of direction. No one focused on that strategic planning. So that's another thing that comes with in the recommendations we'll talk a little bit more of. So breaking that all down, we really tried to establish what are the goals? What should the parking system accomplish? And the parking system is there to support the community and make downtown Eau Claire great, promote the economic vitality of the bids, to be financially sound, to provide operational excellence, also to plan for the future, and is flexible to adjust. Again, as you've seen, if you've been here a while, your community continues to change. It will continue to change in the future, so the parking system does need to adjust. So on that note, some of the assumptions that we used in guiding our recommendations is that the city will take the lead role in parking policy and management. So you'll help set the tone for how parking is addressed. It'll align with the comprehensive plan. Walkability and safety are key components of effective parking policy. We can't put plenty of parking on every single block, so walking a little bit is key. As much alternative transportation options as you like, a lot of people are still going to drive over the next 25 years. They may be EVs, but there's still going to be a lot of cars around for a while. And that there needs to be sufficient supply to support vitality and growth. The last thing anybody wants is to choke downtown because people won't go because they feel like they cannot find a space. So with that, I'll head into the recommendations. And these are focused on the north and south Barstow bid boundaries. Given all that you've gone through and the removal of two facilities, I think it's time to just kind of reset your parking system and look at some holistic changes that allow you to get where you want to go. It's very impressive what you've done with your downtown. Again, Dave said I was here a couple times. The amount of people coming to your downtown just to gather in your community spaces is amazing, and it's great. And I think you want to promote that and lean into it. It's not just downtown where there's a nice restaurant or a shop that I want to go to, but it's a place where our community comes to be together, and that's a nice thing. Policy should reflect goals. Your rate structure has to support what you are trying to accomplish. Your operational structure should bring that leadership we talked about, and again, planning for the future. So what does that look like? So a rate strategy, and I will say when it comes to on-street parking, and parking in general, but on-street and specifically, when an open spot that I can use is the most important aspect of that. If it's not open, it doesn't matter whether it's free or $1,000. I can't use it because there's a car in it. So availability is really your key component. And that's the goal of a rate strategy, is to be able to provide that every time I pull up, I know there'll be a spot or one right around the corner. So on-street parking, $1 an hour, rates from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And just like I said, the prime locations, your premium product should be at the highest price. Off-street parking priced lower to encourage people to use that. Let's get some people in the ramps. Let's go ahead and use those. They were built. They have a cost. And it's a great place for employees and residents and regular visitors who know. Like when I don't look for on-street parking when I go somewhere. I just pull in the ramp because I know I can stay as long as I want. I may have to pay a few dollars for it, but I'm good. I'm not going to get a ticket, and there's not going to be anything in my way. Employee monthly permits should be measurably lower than on-street so that they aren't worried about spending an arm. If it's $1 an hour and you stay there 9 hours a day, it's $180 a month if you work full-time, whereas a permit right now is 46 in the Gibson. So those are the kind of differences you want to make so that employees have those options. But you do have to adjust rates regularly for inflation and changes and just, you know, whatever's going on in your community. Parking's not like everything else. It's not static. There's no set it and forget it mode. The effects of those rate changes is to use pricing to kind of open up those allocation alleys, like I said, so that when people pull up, there's a spot. It's really important for employees to have a reliable place where they, like, I know where I'm supposed to be. It's always open. It's always available to me. And for people to attend events without concern for the parking supply. Again, encourage off-street parking for employees. One thing that if you create more of a parking market, some people who own some parking lots around town will say, oh, I can make a little money off that, or I can do something different. They'll open, right now where there's big signs to park here and I'll tow your car, they may say, well, I'm willing to cut a deal with my neighbor, let his employees park here, let her employees park here. It makes less unused asphalt is the outcome of that. That's a good thing too. And as I said, behaviors will change. You always have to monitor things over time. One of the things that was asked to look at as part of this is really a parking benefits district. It's a concept, and what it means is the money spent on parking in that district stays in that district. And so downtown parking money spent would be to support the system, support the capital maintenance, you know, all on-street, off-street citation, any other revenue you might generate stays there. The initial goal of the changes would be to fund operation and capital costs of all the parking, that there not be anything come out of the general fund. That's the initial goal. If things go really well and you make good progress, it's possible to fund other transportation and alternative parking or alternative to parking initiatives out of that. But the primary goal would be to make sure the parking system's paid for. We'll address that in a minute. Parking leadership, I think, you know, the direction and goals are set by the council, by you, and then the city manager's office helps guide that through. I do think you need a public face for parking, someone people can go to and say, hey, help us out. I've got 20 employees. I've got 2 employees. Where are they supposed to park? Can you help me find a spot that works for them? You know, how does on-street parking and off-street parking work together? They are to have them to be complementary to one another instead of kind of set and separate as they are, to plan for the future. And the operations of that could be a city department. That's one way a lot of communities go. You could also hire a professional parking operator to run it for you and contract it out. A lot of communities do that. Neither one's right or wrong. It's whatever works best for you. I will say, though, for a reset to be successful, you know, accountable leadership has to be both identified and supported in what they're doing so that they can accomplish the goal. Adding parking supplies, you have these structures come down, it's important to put it back. I'll show a map in just a second. But it is important to put some of it back. Structured parking, like everything else, continues to go up in price. You know, a new garage is $40,000 to $50,000 per space. Might be more if you do something that's really specialized with it. The riverfront properties with Riverside coming down and the 2 other properties that are along the river, you've got great opportunities there. I'd hate for a parking shortage in the part of town to really diminish that. So just looking at what that might mean is when Riverside comes down, and if those 2 properties along the river south of the Pablo Center were all converted to buildings, you would have no parking in the busiest part of your downtown. So some parking does need to go back in that area to support all those businesses, to support Pablo, just to support the continued growth of this part of downtown. Very successful, but you don't want to yank all the parking out of there. Just to hit on this, it came up a fair amount when I was here. It was a topic that was brought up several times. And I just go back to the same thing. I know the city's working on it, but if people don't feel like they can walk 3 or 4 blocks safely, that becomes an issue for a good parking policy, because we do expect people to, there's no way to build enough parking for everybody to park exactly in front of where they want to go in a somewhat or even a heavily urbanized environment. It's just not possible. So that walking has to be able to be done. So I just encourage you to continue with the policies that you're working on that. But I did want to point out that it did come up a number of times when I was talking with people. Community acceptance of a parking reset. There are concerns. We charge for parking, we're going to lose our customers. I'd say when the DECI survey said 80% of the people say parking is difficult downtown, you're already being hurt by parking concerns. The reset is an intentional effort to open up those on-street spaces, have the employees park off-street, so that the system works properly and make sure that people always have access. I stopped in a lot of shops when I was here. I talked to owners and workers, and I got a lot of sheepish, yeah, I park on the street type of responses when people, I'm glad they were honest. That was a good thing. But they did tell me that. And so the goal is really to make the system work well so that downtown is well served. Easy to find spots, clean and welcoming facilities like the lights in Gibson. That's been very nice to see. Good technology. Enforcement, writing tickets is really just for chronic abusers. Let's have a forgiveness program to help out. You know, get your first ticket free or one a year, something like that. I mean, we all have a bad day. We all forget. You know, and just have a system that people are willing to pay for because it actually meets their needs and does for them what they're looking for. So just to summarize all those recommendations, I think you need to create a parking department, however that looks, whether that's in-house or contracted, initiate on-street paid parking, adjust hours to really match your peak times. You're as busy or busier at night now than you are during the day. It's busier from 4 to 10 than it is from 10 to 4. Replace parking, work with developers as they come through, or work with whoever might develop those parcels to add supply in that's being removed. I'm recommending that you measure parking supply regularly. I like to see you get it all in GIS format, the entire inventory, and do regular counts, and then the data's all there. And you can just say, well, where were we a year ago? Where were we? And you can always know where you're at on parking occupancy levels. And just communicate all this very effectively to the community, recommending an annual report to council from the parking department, and then operational metrics and all that information posted on the website where people can get to it. What I will tell you is you have to be patient with a big overhaul like this. There will always be some people who it doesn't really work that well for, but it takes time, and it takes time for big changes, especially changes in hours and operation and rates and just the way everything's done, a new department and everything. Give it some time. And complaints shouldn't be ignored, but they need to be measured. Is this really a problem, or are we just working through the growing pains of it? Because there is an element of working through the growing pains. So I'm recommending at least a year, and then to take a good look at a data-driven response to what's going on. Changes before that, you're really not going to know if it's really helping because of just the time it takes to get everything in place. And then a leader who's publicly responsible for implementation. As we all know, when it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job, and things don't get done. So until someone's in charge of it, it won't happen. I believe that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forrester, for presenting your parking study and the recommendations and this immense amount of data that we've been given to look over here. Are there any members of council who have questions for Mr. Forrester? Councilman Schoen?
Thank you. I actually have a process question because we have a work session on this topic tomorrow evening after our meeting, and so I'm wondering, should council be asking specific questions, limited, like short form questions, and then obviously broader discussion tomorrow during the work session? Or if you could just help me set my expectations for our question session tonight, that would be helpful.
So what I was hoping for tonight was if you had questions on the material presented, that you ask them tonight to try to get them answered. And then tomorrow would be questions on, we heard a lot of feedback from businesses, if there's a certain theme that you're hearing, say, hey, we'd like you to maybe expand this part of the study for the final draft, or we'd like you to look at this a little bit further. Feedback on whether you feel another public discussion is warranted for the final presentation. I was planning on just presenting it if there was minor changes on Tuesday, but feedback for that. So if you have questions tonight, certainly it was my intent that you would be able to have those answered by Mr. Forrester or myself or both.
I do have one question. Is it okay?
Certainly.
Thank you, Acting Council President Miller. So I'm thinking, I have honestly probably a ton of questions, but I'll limit it to, I think, maybe the most pressing in my mind right now, which is, I think about the topic of parking in our community, and also right now our city is undergoing an effort to overhaul our zoning, and there's a lot of conversation on parking minimums with new development. I'm just wondering, like, if you have any insight, I'm wondering if our consultant, Mr. Forrester, has any insight as to, like, whether or not entertaining the option of removing parking minimums for new development would negatively impact any of your recommendations that you've outlined in this report.
So the idea of making the center city parking exempt with no requirements of anybody, it does a couple things. It obligates the city to build that infrastructure. So it does that. But no, it wouldn't dramatically change anything we've recommended. It does lower the hoops the developer has to go through to get something approved. I've worked with communities who have done it, and they have seen people come out of the woodwork to develop that weren't there before. But you need to stay in front of it. Usually I get called when they're like, hey, we're in trouble here. We've let everybody develop without any parking, and now they're parking in people's yards. So if you're going to consider something like that, a big change to your zoning like that, I'd say get ahead of it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pelton?
Thank you. I also have a ton of questions. My first one is about the process, though. If you could, Deputy City Manager, if you could pop back up here. I'm wondering, this was super interesting, and I think answered a lot of questions that I had and that a lot of the community had. I'm wondering if this is the first moment, like I guess I know that there's been a lot of interaction in development of the study with community groups, but I'm wondering if any of those community groups have seen this draft yet, and if not, like what will kind of happen between now and the final draft to really like solicit public feedback.
So yeah, we had a meeting back in December. I think it was November or December.
December 18th.
And it was, Mr. Forrester joined us online, so people were able to tune in via WebEx or Zoom, whatever media we had. And we had a meeting in the North Conference from business owners were invited, members of the public, the Downtown Neighborhood Association, I believe, attended for that. But as far as process, typically what we've done with the parking studies in the past is the city council just accepts it. So it's not endorsing it, it's not implementing it, it's just saying, all right, we accept the study, we got a presentation on it, the study is done, and then we turn around and we start working on implementing it. And there's a implementation timeline that I printed out for you. And that's a recommendation of Mr. Forrester. How we implement it will be something that we'll work with City Council, but then staff will start having meetings with the bids and with DECI and neighborhood associations, open houses to go through to say, well, this is the first 5 things or whatever we picked that we'd like to implement. We'd start the public process with that. Then we'd go on to the next ones after that and implement it. So this, between today and 2 weeks from now, is just saying we're done with the study stage, and then the implementation stage is just, like we typically do with the engagement and so forth. We wouldn't be back before you at the end of February with a paid parking presentation without doing a public involvement like we normally do with initiatives.
Okay, that's helpful. And that makes total sense. I just asked because there's been such a large interest in parking, and would have expected to see more people in council chambers tonight. And so I just wondered if like folks if it was new information and maybe they're catching up to this being introduced, so.
I think, I would speculate part of it is we've invited people, businesses, residents, council members, chamber, along every step of the way. So none of this is new for people, and I think the number of people that are here might be representative of just people being a part of the process all along and feeling that, I've heard feedback that they feel like they've been heard, and they're just waiting, and I've expressed the process to them that the parking study, if the city council accepts it, doesn't mean they're implementing it. It just means we're going to be on to the next stage, and I would expect more participation in our meetings that council will be invited to, and businesses as well, as we start taking recommendations and seeing how they fit uniquely Eau Claire-wise for that.
Great, thank you, that's great to hear. Can I have one more question? I can wait too. Oh, wait,
Go ahead.
yeah.
No,
Okay, you want me to go?
you can go ahead.
Okay. So I have a question for you, sir. I'm wondering, so you presented some interesting changes to the rate structure, and I'm wondering if you have any financial projections if we were to move forward with changes like that. You had mentioned that there's the parking runs at a deficit, and if these recommendations would bring us to a place where at least it's not neutral.
I have not done detailed projections of revenue, partly because with holistic changes like this, we all do things based on what's presented in front of us. People will react differently. I would say it would be very difficult to give you something accurate, but I have great hope that you would at least break even operationally, that $350,000 would go away. Will you be able to pay for the capital cost of 2 new garages or new spaces at $40,000, $50,000 a space? That would be the hope. I think that's a tougher lift, for sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation this evening. I think one of the things I wanted to ask your opinion on is sort of following off of Councilmember Felton's comment. My first question is really around, we had heard this idea of maybe like, it was from some of the downtown businesses, but this idea of doing a short-term, like keeping on-street parking free, and then potentially going to $1, $2, or whatever, if you want to stay longer. It was one of the ideas that came up. I wanted to get your input on whether that's a smart idea, if you've seen any other communities do that. I thought it sounded creative, and so I wanted to just kind of ask your opinion on that.
It's one way to go. What I will say is operationally, it's a bit of a headache, because you have to figure out how to determine how long the car was there. If we're going to give away half an hour free, how do we know they were only there half an hour? When did their session start? There's ways to do that. Technology allows you to do that through mobile apps and other things. But it's more work for the customer, and it's more work for the operator. And so I would say in communities that are really trying to promote their downtown, lean towards that more often. And I think they generally end up working a whole lot harder than they wanted to for the minor amount of gain that they got from it. So
that's helpful. I appreciate you kind of sharing your experience with that. In terms of trying to increase the amount of multimodal transportation into our downtown, does this plan, I haven't read it page for page, but did this plan have any set goals on how we might think about doing that? And the reason I ask is when you're looking at $50,000 a parking spot, each person that you can get to either walk into downtown if they can, or take a bicycle or take the bus, is saving a whole lot of money on taxpayers who are probably going to be fronting most of this bill. Is there ideas about that, about how to increase multimodal?
This parking study does not specifically address multimodal. I will say one of the going back to a parking benefits district and the concept of that, one of the portions that promotes multimodal use is paid parking. Anything that's free, we tend to take advantage of, and we associate the value of it for what we paid for it. And so free parking tends to encourage a little more driving, frankly, whereas paid parking tends to encourage a little more carpooling, or, hey, it's a beautiful night, we're only a mile away, let's walk, or let's ride our bike, and do that. So while there's not specifically multimodal in there, paid parking does move you closer to that
Encourages it.
objective.
And then if I could have one more question, which is, I like that you bring out Appleton in this, because I visited Appleton quite a bit. My wife's from the other side of the state, and we go over there. And I like, yeah, you pay, but it's like you feel like you're getting a good deal on what you're using. So I like that you've included that community in here. Is it your, is the idea about a parking benefits district that we could potentially be able to pay for not just the operating, but some of that capital? Because I think that's what the toughest ask is right now on our city, is to think about spending potentially 20 million when your capital is only a little more than double that every year is just a huge lift. And so to me, that's the biggest benefit of doing this, is thinking about how do we, if we're going to provide that infrastructure, how do we make it work, and how do we not have to like cut our streets and cut our clean water and not do affordable housing because we're sinking it all into a ramp. Those are some of the things we're having to think about.
Yep. Those are extremely difficult questions that are tough. Appleton, for what it's worth, their parking system pays for their parking system, including capital outlays and maintenance. And so I talked to them, had a great conversation with them. I haven't been there. I'm glad to see you saw value in what they were doing. That's kind of the big picture of what I'm trying to bring to Eau Claire is let's have people see value. It works. It works for me. I'm able to get where I'm going. And that's really what you want. That would be the hope. You know, there are ebbs and flows in economic times and everything else. I will say that most communities that have successful downtowns have invested in parking, and it's worked out well for them over time.
Councilmember Pelton?
Yeah, one thing that we've heard from community members in our discussion about paid on-street parking a few years ago was a concern over going to like an app-based system. And I wanted to, this is a super specific question, but I wanted to ask about your thoughts on how essential kiosks, like physical kiosks, are in the community, or for on-street parking, paid on-street parking?
I think at this point in time, you have to have some. In 10 years, you might be able to do an entirely app-based system. But there are people who, frankly, don't like using apps. There are people who are cash only. Having an alternative there is nice for them. I think just having that option of using the kiosk and either paying by your credit card at the kiosk is a very good thing. We did do a map of potential kiosk locations. I think for right now, in this day and age, 10 years ago, we'd have put twice as many out because it would have been the only option. But the apps have come a long way. And I think most communities that go ahead and promote the app get really good acceptance of it fairly quickly. Some communities I work with are over 95% payment comes through the mobile app and the kiosk combined. Mobile app and credit card payments, there's almost zero cash left being used at all in some communities. And a lot of communities are now over 50% of all their payments coming through their mobile app. So it's growing as we get more used to it, as we get more comfortable with it, as we feel like our money's secure when we do something like that. People will do more of it.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Forster or for Deputy City Manager Solberg? Councilmember Brewster?
Thank you, Acting Council President. Not really a question, but just more of like, I want to thank you for your work on this. Like, I feel like this is like really holistically valuable, the process, and thank you.
Thank you. We did a walking tour together around downtown too, so we got a chance to talk about specific spots. It was interesting.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Forster.
Thank you.
At this point, I would open up public comment to this agenda item. Going from the list, I'll prioritize the list first, and then we'll get to anybody who hasn't signed up afterwards. First on the list is Diane Luter. Welcome, and once again, you'll have 4 minutes to speak. The lights will light up in front of you, and when it gets to red, your time will be up.
All right, thank you. My name is Diane Leader. I'm Vice Chair of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I wanted to thank you for conducting this study and the potential parking reset. And I appreciate the very transparent and open way that the information has been shared with our Downtown Neighbor Association and in general. I attended the December 18th virtual presentation of the study, all 73 slides, and had plenty of time for questions. I think it was a very thoughtfully done study, and it addressed many of the concerns and questions that members of the Downtown Neighborhood Association had submitted. I also read the full report because we were sent a copy of it, and I appreciated that. And I studied the proposed parking study recommendations matrix. That's the implementation phase. One significant omission from the matrix is a plan to improve safety downtown and on the ramps. The matrix is going to take several years to complete. You can't wait that long to improve safety downtown. The consultant's report mentions safety as a concern in 6 different sections. DECI and the Downtown Neighborhood Association surveys highlight safety as a serious concern. Problems with the lack of safety in the parking ramps is a factor in the potential failure of the parking reset project. Safe parking areas are needed to support a vibrant downtown. It is insufficient to simply verbally assure citizens that the downtown is safe to patronize. In the past 12 months, Wilson Park has been mowed down and a Sharps box installed. I used to play there weekly, petanque, with a group of friends. We've been driven out of that park this last year, and we've been playing there over 10 years. Several caves along the river were cleaned out and barricaded. A letter from the city attorney and the police chief was sent to the state attorney general asking for help with the homeless problem and the actions of neighboring counties. In all 3 instances, danger to police and other city workers was cited. This should have also included danger to the people who work in downtown Eau Claire, danger to the citizens who live and patronize the downtown. Verbal assurances no longer ring true. I know the city is trying to find solutions to the homeless situation in Eau Claire. However, there are some actions that could be taken in the near term that would help improve safety downtown and on the parking ramps. These include improved lighting along pathways, bridges, and parks. Sometimes when I live downtown right near the farmer's market. If I go to something at Pablo, during the season when it's dark from 5 to 5, I don't dare walk along Riverfront Terrace. It's so dark over in the park, it looks like a black hole. And all of the apartment buildings along Riverfront Terrace have fob entry only, so there's no way I could run in for Safe Harbor. So I don't walk that way. Street ambassadors and a foot patrol for neighborhood presence would be reassuring. High-resolution security cameras in the ramps and other areas considered potential or actual crime areas. Our downtown is considered the hot zone for crime in the city. Speed bumps on the ramps.
Ms. Leader, your time is, if you could finish up, please, your time has expired.
Oh. Speed bumps on the ramp to deter unsafe driving where Pedestrians are often present, and strict and consistent enforcement of laws and rules and fines pertaining to the intended use of the parking ramp, which is for parking.
Okay, thank you, and your time has expired. But are there any members of council that have any questions for Ms. Leader?
Well,
Councilmember Worthman?
thank you, and thank you, Ms. Leader. We've met before.
Yes, we
and
have.
I appreciate all of your wisdom on this. Can you make sure that all of the things you presented tonight are sent to the council as well through our email?
And
Oh, you
I-
have it,
oh,
okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, we want to work with you. We're not your enemy from downtown. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leader. Next on the list is Nate Otto.
Thank you. I'm Nate Otto, 1215 Main Street. I'm here on behalf of Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a growing congregation of 250 people located on Farwell and Gray Street.
I'm sorry, Mr. Otto. City Clerk, can we start the time, please? Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. We're directly across the street from the open-air parking lot on Gray and Farwell. And this is our concern with this plan, just to remember that this lot exists and what its significance is. We're hard to get to. Our church is on an island, and this island is bounded by busy Main Street, busy Farwell Street, and the steep East Hill Hill. So if you imagine somebody, usually church congregants or elderly, having to park across these boundaries, across these barriers, it's kind of difficult. And that's why we're concerned, in part because it's not just our 250 members and growing that we are thinking about. It's the life-changing events, the weddings, the funerals, the events for the community that draw a bigger crowd. Now, why should the city be concerned about this? Every once in a while, we completely pack the church building for a large community event. One that comes out to mind is something 5 years ago, exactly 5 years ago, that I think a lot of people in this room were at, which was one of the last events before COVID. We had a march from that church to City Hall. And it's a major meeting center for community events that's unique. So this is why we are worried about what could happen to the future of this open air lot. We're worried about what could the impact be if this lot becomes a paid lot on Sundays especially, or on weekends when people do have these significant life events or we have these significant community events. And on top of that, we're not the only congregation that relies on this lot. There are two other churches nearby. It's almost like a mini church district within downtown that is also on the far east, well, the east end of downtown that's partially separated by Farwell Street. So the point is, do think about the parking lot on Gray and Farwell, a small, nondescript lot, but I think it has an outsized impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. Any questions for the speaker? If not, thank you.
Great, thank you.
At a reiteration of rules, speakers for the public hearing should be residents of the city of Eau Claire or have a place of business in the city. I see there's another speaker, Sue Beadle. I can't. Yeah, do you live in the city or have a business in the city?
I do not live in the city, but I am on the board of the Unitarian Universalist Church.
Well, we consider that a place of business, so please come forward.
Thanks very much. Nate Otto.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name for the record?
Sure.
I can't quite read the whole thing.
Sure. Susan Beadle Sism.
Thank you.
And as I said in the back, I am a board member for the Unitarian Universalist congregation here in Eau Claire. Nate shared a lot of our concerns, and I just wanted to add to that and talk about the fact that it's not just us, it's also Christ Church that would be impacted by this. We're both longstanding community services in the area. We don't just have Sunday services. We have support groups for many different groups in the city. We're using that lot, not as much on weekdays, but we still are using it on weekdays. We serve a lot of under or disadvantaged folks in our congregation who, if it was a pay lot, would have a difficult time finding accessible parking. We have, you know, a multi-generational congregation. We have, you know, our founding members are still with us in their 80s, several of them, and we have new families joining all the time, which, you know, multi-children families that need parking that's close by. So we would ask for you to consider free parking on Sundays in downtown lots, also for special events that may take place during a weekday or non-Sunday, like a funeral. And temporary parking passes could be a possibility for folks who could place on their dashboards so they could park in those lots for free. And lastly, I just wanted to point out, you know, not everyone has the means. I think I said that before. Not everyone has the means to pay for parking. It's a privilege. And maybe that car is their lifeline. And by taking that opportunity to connect with community services, that'd be taking their lifeline away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Beadle-Season? Actually, if, Mr. Forrester, I think in your recommendations, did you recommend the park? I thought I saw something about Monday through Saturday being the paid parking downtown. Was there, in your suggestions, was Sunday suggested to be free parking?
In the recommendations, yes, Sunday was suggested to be free parking.
Okay, I thought I saw that. I just couldn't quite find it. So, okay, thank you for that follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the speaker? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. That is all the speakers who have signed up. Is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak to the downtown parking study? Yeah, please come forward. If you could just start off with stating your name and your address.
Julia Johnson. I live at 1902 Eagle Lane in Eau Claire, and I also own businesses through the Pablo Group. I'm one of 3 owners. I've talked to John Forrester quite a bit because 2 of our businesses rely very heavily on public parking. So we've got the Lismore and the old U.S. Bank building that was built in the 1920s that is now called Barstow Commons, but I feel like everybody still knows it as the U.S. Bank building. I've also been passionate about downtown parking as a member of the parking committee, which has had, I don't know, on and off activity over the last 10 years that I've been on that parking committee. And Dave Solberg claims that I love parking. I will tell you it is a love-hate relationship. And I really, really do appreciate that the City Council and city staff went through the parking study process. I am very grateful for my invitation to be involved in it, and I just appreciate the thoughtfulness and the expertise that has gone into studying this annoying but very vital issue for downtown. My personal opinion after being present with the presentation of where the paid parking on, sorry, mumbling, like paid on-street parking area on the map is that I generally think it is too large. I think it will feel like all of downtown has gone to paid parking and that there aren't options for people that would like to walk a little further in order to get free parking. I think that, you know, the boundaries have covered so much of downtown that that won't feel like an option. Earlier on in the study, it said that sometimes there is available parking if you're willing to walk. I don't know that the plan as it is right now provides that viable option. I also am very curious why this calculation of revenue versus expense doesn't consider the density of downtown is only allowed by public parking. So what I'm trying to say is like the increased valuation of downtown is a result of the investment that public parking and its enforcement and maintenance and those expenses provide. So I look at it as an investment, and I think that you get a lot of payback for that investment, return on investment. And then the last comment that I have is that I do think that there are more people that would like to come to council chambers and comment on this. So I hope that you do have another opportunity in the future to encourage public participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any members of council have questions for Ms. Johnson? Councilmember Brewster.
Thank you, Acting Council President. I just want to say thank you for your efforts on the parking committee in the past, and hope we keep you plugged in on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your work on this. Can you explain your first point just a little more here? I'm trying to look at this map on-street, off-street designations.
I wonder, did they receive was it green and purple?
Green and purple, it's in the 73 page presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. This one right here.
Yeah, nope. Nope. Yes, that's the one. And you are not viewing North Barstow as a part of that map. So I also focus a lot on that area. And I know that Mr. Forrester provided helpful information to me that there is a 70% usage threshold that determines whether or not paid parking would be a helpful management tool in any particular area, and that area did cross the threshold, and I believe him. But from my experience in that area, I don't see the need for parking management tool in that area like I do experience on, say, Barstow Street and Graham Avenue on the South Barstow side of town. So that's kind of my rationale of why I think that area outlined in green and purple is too large. And especially if you look at the green areas, those are pretty far away from businesses, and those are the areas that I hope, you know, someone who's very motivated and would rather walk 4 blocks to their minimum wage job than pay parking, especially for a part-time employee. Like, I know that we're fortunate that we have $40 a month spaces available from the city. But if you are a part-time employee, that could be a larger portion of your paycheck than seems viable to you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Acting President. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. So I'm a bit tired tonight, so I'm going to ask you to kind of restate your argument as it relates to this map. What is your argument?
I think that paid parking is a great management tool, and that map shows more area than we need management tool for.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from council? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Any further speakers? If not, we will move on to item 4 on the agenda, water utility rates. Public discussion regarding a simplified rate case to increase the water utility rates by 4.1% within the City of Eau Claire schedule of fees and licenses effective February 1st, 2025. And we have Finance Director Winters here tonight.
Good evening, Acting Council President Miller, Council. Passing out a handout. It's a one-pager for you with some of the information that's on the screen. We do have the majority of the information in front of you, so we'll review our technical difficulties here. So I'm before you this evening in reference to a resolution for tomorrow night. That will be an ordinance amendment allowing me to have the ability to adjust the fee schedule. In November, for history, we, with the budget process, brought you a resolution allowing me to apply for a rate increase. We're at the simplified phase at this moment, part of our long-term financial planning or long-range cash flows that we've done for the water utility. This simplified rate case does not affect rate structure or rate design. It simply can be considered a cost of living increase or inflationary. We take a long, hard look at our cash flows, the rising costs of our capital improvement projects, PFAS being one of them, our large treatment facility. That is scheduled to be completed in 2026. Then we will take the next phase, look at a conventional rate case then in 2027. So we do meet the specifications to apply for the simplified this evening. The PSC sets that rate. It is at 4.1%. We've published that to the public. We also did list it in our agenda last week, just for even further notification. Average impact on customers is around $3 per quarter. Average usage is 16 CCF, so that's a difference in those rates there, multiplied out by the increase. You can see that we're on the lower end of our comparable municipalities. We're at 2.48 charge per CCF after that rate increase. And the next highest would be West Allis. Green Bay is at $3. Rate case history, I'm glad you have that in front of you. So every 5 years you have the ability to apply for a conventional rate case. And that's not something that we need to do all of the time. So you'll notice we've had some larger gaps where we haven't done that every 5 years. Then you can see where the pandemic came into play. We've had some large rising costs. So I think I've mentioned water plant chemicals annually, but our CIP items have risen drastically, and then you're adding on the $20 million PFAS project as well. There are a few other capital improvement items, and when I was looking at those, they average out so high. They're doubling in what that we need to invest in. So rather than around a $2 million average, they're up closer to a 5, 7. We have some larger scale projects like a generator or Chippewa River crossing project, painting of a Folsom water tower. Just the individual cost of those is going up. So we've had to look at that conventional a little bit closer from 2014 to 2022, and now that will get closer in 2027. So we're kind of shortening up that gap. Simplified is the stepping stones into that, so 8% raise or increase last year, 4.1% allowable this year. And then we're making every effort over the next steps of that conventional rate case to keep that number closer to a single digit as well. Historically, those have been a little bit into the double digits. We've been, and just for the PFAS update to elaborate, we've been looking for money at every revenue source we can. We've had congressionally directed funds from Representative Baldwin, Van Orden. We have ARPA funding. We're currently pursuing the class action lawsuit and have permission to offset the rates there. And we're not stopping there, so we're going to continue on requesting that to have the least impact to the public. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Yes, Councilmember Schoen.
Thank you, Acting Council President. So I did receive a couple of comments from the public with questions or concerns about this, and I'll say being involved in the work we're involved in on council, I think we have the privilege of understanding how significant and important the infrastructure and investment into our water system is. But I'm wondering if you or Director Berg is here also. I don't know if somebody on staff would be able to just give like a quick summary of the significance of these. And I know that Director Winters, you mentioned some of the costly projects that the city does already, but just in case any members of the public are listening, and then also to aid in my response to some of those comments, I'm just wondering, like, what would your sales pitch be to the public for why this is incredibly important to the health of our community?
Sure. Well, I can start with the financial side of it, and I can let Director Berg talk about operations. But when we do that long-range cash flow financing, we take a look at what we think is going to happen, but then also the new ratepayers that are coming on, how much collections we have from that expansion, but also the cost of all of those projects going out and all those repairs. So this will be the first year that, or 2024 will be the first projected year that we're actually having to dip into our reserves. And that's the water utility reserves is kind of the number one. I feel like it's the number one public priority is the water. That's definitely high on my list. And that's a fund balance I don't like to get down lower. I mean, I think it's a bonus to have people coming onto it. The revenues are coming into that savings account or fund balance from growth, and it's a good thing. The prices go up. If there's an immediate concern that needs to be repaired, and I can come to you and say, well, we have $5 million in savings, we have $7 million in savings, I don't need to issue debt this year. That's my fiscal, that's my goal, and I do like to keep that balance there. We're scheduled to take a large reduction there, just because we're kind of in that in-between period of being able to do a full rate case. And the inflationary increases that we're allowed to receive are not covering that minimum balance I need to have in there.
And Director Berg, do you have any further comments?
Sure. Good evening, Acting Council President Miller, rest of the council.
I think technically it's Chairperson Pro Tem, but...
Okay, that's too difficult to say. So here's my sales pitch from an operations standpoint, and it's very relatable to everyday life. As we've seen, just the cost of living is very expensive now. We've seen huge increases in chemical costs. Electricity has went up, repair parts. Across the board, we're seeing projects that should have been half the cost, based on traditional pricing, the costs are doubling to do a project. So it's very relatable to everyday life. Just go to the grocery store and buy a $100 bag of groceries. It's a little tough to swallow, but it's the same thing with us. Some items we have to pay up for. We have to continue treating our water. We can't wait for chemicals. We can't wait for repair parts if something breaks, and availability just isn't there. We have to pay up to expedite, getting some of these supplies. So, it's very relatable to everyday life. We don't want to raise rates. We don't want to do this to our customers, but we have to do it. Kitsy has touched on the financial side of things, and we have to do that to remain viable in our operations.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for council for either Finance Director Winters or Director Berg? Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Acting President. This question is for Director Berg. It's somewhat of a tangential question, not directly relatable to this issue, but yet it is. Reclaimed water systems. Why don't we have that within the city? What if we were to have reclaimed water systems? How might it impact what we do here?
Yeah, so we're not at that point right now where we have to look at reclaimed water. It's a really good idea in areas where they're starved for water, and we just have such a great resource, an abundant resource. There's a ton of upfront costs to do that. You'd have to have return piping, to go to a different treatment facility and such. So right now it's not feasible. We're blessed with an abundance of water, and but in places that are starved for water or don't have really good supplies, it's an option they have to look at. So we've been told that we have basically non-diminishable supply of water, and, so until we see anything change, we would probably stick with our standard operations. But it's a really good point, and you'll see a lot of areas in the country, I think, take this much more seriously and have to look at it as an option.
Any further questions from council for either of the directors? If not, thank you. Opening up for public comment, there is nobody signed up on the list. Is there anybody in chambers that would like to speak to the water utility rates? Anyone for the water utility rates? Seeing none, that will end the public discussions. We will now move to the public comment period. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak during the public comment period this evening? Any members of the public would just like to speak during the public comment period? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period, and if there's no objection from council, the meeting is adjourned.